Fight fans, welcome to the PBC Podcast, brought to you by Premier Boxing Champions with your host, Kenneth Bouhairie and Michael Rosenthal.
Welcome everyone to the PBC Podcast. I'm Kenneth Bouhairie.
And I'm Michael Rosenthal, editor of USA Today's Boxing Junkie.
As always, we want to thank you guys for tuning in to yet another episode. This week, we've got undefeated welterweight contender Cody Crowley and world-class trainer Derrick James joining us. Plus, in this week's toe-to-toe section, we are going to list our 5 best PBC fighters without a world title currently. But first, let's start off with all the great action that we saw last Saturday in the week in review. Last Saturday, PBC on SHOWTIME returned with a triple header. And in the main event, 154-pound action, undefeated Tszyu got off the canvas in the first round to win a 12-round unanimous decision over Tszyu-Gausha. Pretty good fight. Think we learned a lot about Tszyu. Think we learned a lot about Gausha here. But let's start from the beginning, Mike. What was your reaction when Gausha dropped Tszyu in the first round?
I was surprised. I remember thinking, well, this isn't going to be easy. And it wasn't, even though I thought he won pretty clearly. It was a tough fight. Anyway, it became clear pretty quickly after the knockdown that he wasn't hurt. He soon began marching forward again, doing his thing, which is to walk down Gausha, which he did the entire fight. So I guess it was a flash knockdown, but it was a real knockdown. That was a hard punch that put him down, but I guess it was a flash knockdown because it didn't hurt him.
Was that a red flag to you when you saw that knockdown, or what was your thoughts initially in it?
Nah, I guess it always depends on what happens after it.
Right.
But I don't know if it was a red. It was a little test, that okay, now we're gonna see what this guy's about.
Right.
But Gausha is a former Olympian, a world-class guy. He landed a big punch. The guy went down. And he got right back up, and it didn't affect him that much. So, it's weird. As you could almost say it was better that it happened because it showed him and the rest of us that he could overcome adversity to win a fight handily. And I think that's what happened.
Well, overall, how did Tszyu look to you?
I thought he made a strong statement overall. I don't think it was a perfect performance. He went down. He got hit quite a bit. He didn't use his jab. That punch was really not a factor in the fight, but as I wrote, the good far outweighed the bad. I was particularly impressed with his ability to just impose his will against a good opponent like Gausha with just ferocity and efficiency. I wouldn't say he landed hard punches at will, but it approached that. His body shots were just particularly vicious.
They were brutal.
Yeah, and Gausha, as hard as he fought, he just couldn't do much of anything about it. I think Tszyu has the physical and mental makeup to overwhelm good opponents, and it might be no different when he faces next level guys.
What about Gausha? What were your thoughts on his performance?
I think I was, among a lot of people who admired his courage. He really showed a lot of heart in that fight. He took a lot of punishing shots. A lot of guys might have just given up. He didn't. Even after a harrowing round 5, remember round 5? I thought he was going to go in that round. Instead, he just continued to fight his heart out until the final bell. Overall, he did pretty well. He just got caught up in a nasty storm and couldn't find any shelter. Tszyu was just too strong and too good for him, but that doesn't mean that he didn't give a pretty good performance.
Yeah, he certainly did, but you're right. I mean, Tszyu showed incredible work rate, conditioning, the power, of course, the determination. Where is there room for improvement with him?
Well, first, I like the fact that he said after the fight that he has a lot of room to improve. That's a good sign. That's like a first step. I think he can work on his defense. He didn't move his head much, for example. Broadcasters pointed that out, and I think that was the case. I think the fight might have been a little easier for him if he'd fought behind his jab a little bit more. I think his jab might have set up his power shots a little better than just like walking the guy down, although it worked pretty damn well because I thought he won convincingly. But again, the jab just wasn't a factor in the fight at all. Those are two things. I feel like I'm nitpicking a little bit, but I believe he does have room to get better.
Yeah, I would say so. And since he said so, we agree. Where does Gausha go from here?
Well, that's a really good question. He's now 0-3-1 in his 4 biggest fights, and he's 34 years old. I mean, how many more chances is he going to get? Maybe the fact that he fought so hard in that fight will work in his favor. Maybe he gets one more chance because of that. I don't know. And that's if he wants it. I suspect, it's just not going to happen. If you want me to assess, what I really think is going to happen, I suspect it's just not going to happen for Terrell. It might surprise me, but I just don't think he's going to get over that hump. But maybe he'll come to the same conclusion and hang him up. I don't know. I do doubt he'll quit. I don't think that's going to happen. These guys always believe they can turn things around, and sometimes they do. And after what I saw on Saturday with him, it's a possibility.
Yeah, absolutely. He gave a strong effort. It was a competitive fight, and we saw what he did to Jamonte Clark in the bout prior. I think there's still a lot of good fights out there for him. He's, if he wants to continue fighting, he's just going to have to work his way back up. What about Tszyu? Who would you like to see him face next?
I'd like to see him fight the winner of the Jermell Charlo Brian Castano rematch for all the 154-pound marbles. Wow. It seems to me that either Tszyu or the winner of the Erickson Lubin Sebastian Fundora fight are at the head of the line, to get that fight. Yeah. And if Tszyu doesn't get the Charlo Castano winner for whatever reason, I don't know what that might be, and the Lubin Fundora winner is available, that would be a great matchup. Imagine it's like I would pick Lubin to beat Fundora in what I think is a really great matchup. Imagine Tszyu and Lubin.
What a fight.
Just be a tremendous fight. I really want to see how good this guy, Tszyu, really is, and what better way to find out than have him fight one of the guys we were just talking about.
Yeah, I think that no question we saw how good he was on Saturday night, but I feel like there's still room for improvement before he steps in there with the killers like Jermell Charlo and Brian Castano. But again, there are a slew of top contenders at 154, and I wouldn't mind seeing him against the Fundora versus Lubin winner. That would be a great fight. Now, in Saturday night's co-main event, rising contender Michel Rivera earned a unanimous decision over the previously unbeaten Joseph Adorno in their lightweight showdown. Mike, what were your thoughts on Rivera's performance?
It was a good performance. I thought he bolstered his reputation of being a good, polished boxer and a good athlete. On top of that, he basically won the fight with his jab, which probably is one of the best in the business. All 3 judges scored at 97-93. I didn't think it was even that close. Overall, he controlled the fight and won easily. I do think there were some problems on his part, though.
Yeah, there were. I did hear that he might have injured his right hand, and that's why he didn't use it as much. But, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I'm not a doctor. Is there anything you would have liked to have seen Rivera do differently?
Well, I didn't know what you just told me, so maybe that changes things a little bit. But what I was going to say is, you could beat a guy like Adorno with a jab and just occasional power punches, combinations. That probably isn't going to work against an elite opponent, the next level guy. He threw some power shots. He threw some combinations when he wanted to, just not often enough to break down Adorno, to really, just break him down and beat him convincingly. He kind of did that in his own way. I was thinking during the fight, where's the next gear? Where's the killer instinct? I just never saw it. He needs to get a little more aggressive if he hopes to beat the next level opponents. If he had an injured hand, then he had an injured hand. Maybe that played a role. I don't know, but I still need to see it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Speaking of needing to see it, who should be next for Rivera?
Listen, the guy's got a lot of ability. He could probably give any 130-pounder problems. That said, if you want to give him the best chance...
135, you mean?
Did I say 130?
Lightweight, yeah.
No, I meant 135.
Yeah, although he probably could give a lot of 130-pounders problems, too.
Well, if he can get down to that weight, he might dominate completely. No, I meant 135. That said, if you want to give him the best chance possible of actually beating the top lightweights, I would give him a few more fights to work on things. Jose Valenzuela popped into my mind. He's a good lightweight prospect. Yeah. Maybe a guy like that. I don't know. Although I don't know if you want to put Valenzuela in Rivera. I'm just trying to say that maybe that level guy is. The point is, if I were advising him, I don't know if I'd put him in the ring with a guy like Rolly Romero in his next fight.
Yeah. Still work to be done there. Now, in the telecast opener, super lightweight contender, rising contender Elvis Rodriguez scored a 7th round knockout over Argentina's Juan Velasco. Rodriguez dropped Velasco 3 times in the 7th round of their encounter. What were your thoughts on his performance?
Strong performance.
Yeah.
I like the way he methodically broke down Velasco. He was aggressive, but he was never wild. He was always measured, and in the end, he delivered a pretty bad beating. He didn't finish Velasco with one punch, as I kind of thought he was going to, going into the fight. I almost think this was better, though. He executed a good game plan just perfectly. Really good performance, I thought, on Rodriguez's part.
Yeah, I agree. It was a veteran-like performance, a patient performance. It's the kind of fight that you don't see from young boxers very often. Based on what you saw, what is his ceiling? I mean, the 140-pound division is pretty stacked.
I think I gave that a lot of thought. I think that's still hard to say. Velasco is a tough, solid guy, but he's a limited guy. I need to see Rodriguez against a guy a little bit better than that to have a really good idea of how far he could go. I'll say this, though. It was hard to find flaws in that performance. That's all you can ask of a guy in any fight. My gut tells me that the ceiling is pretty high, but we'll see. Now, remember, he did lose to Kenneth Sims less than a year ago. So, I think this guy, he definitely has room to grow. I just really liked what I saw. That was a really good sign on Saturday.
Yeah, well, definitely one of the better performances I saw from. Not one of the most explosive, but one of the better complete performances. Who would you like to see Rodriguez face next?
Well, we've seen a lot of Rodriguez, because he's such a hot prospect, but he's still a prospect. He's not even ranked. So, my gut tells me that he could handle one of the top guys, but I think that would be jumping the gun. So the guys that popped into my head were Ryan Carl, who's a good, solid guy. That might be a good test for Rodriguez. Fight. Maybe a Victor Postol level guy. That kind of thing. And then maybe 2 or 3 fights down the line, we could start talking about guys like Subriel Matias or maybe even Robert Easter, but one step at a time for Rodriguez.
Yeah, for sure. I like the Ryan Carl fight for him. I like the Victor Postol fight as well. Two good matchups for him, and I like the way Rodriguez is being moved. Can't wait to see what's next for him. By the way, Prediction League standings, Mike and I are both 9-4. Nothing has changed there. It is time to bring in our first guest. He is an unbeaten welterweight contender who returns to the ring Saturday, April 16th against Josesito Lopez. That's on the Errol, Spence, Yordenis Ugas SHOWTIME pay-per-view card from AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Cody Crowley. Cody, first, happy belated birthday. How did you spend your birthday when you're in the middle of camp?
Thanks very much, guys. You know what? Same as always. It's been a decade long of my birthdays come up and I'm in the gym. Nothing really changes. I don't really go out and party. I don't get too excited and distracted. I just stay focused. So once again, this year, I was in the gym and then I was staying at home all day, just resting and eating real good food.
Now, how has camp been for your return on April 16th?
You know what? Every camp is a little bit different. It seems like, your whole life, you're kind of always going through different ups and downs and obstacles. So nothing is ever the same. And this camp, just like always, I'm having my own obstacles and hurdles that I come across and I got to jump over. But just like every single fight that you see, I show up, I'm prepared, and I go in there and do exactly what I trained to do. And that's dominate from the opening bell till the end of the fight. If it goes to the scorecards, this camp, I show up every day. I give it my 100%, and that's all I can ask for myself. That's a win right there.
Cody, where is your training camp?
I'm based out of Las Vegas right now. I'm training out of a gym called Real Boxing. Great team over there. My coach, Ibn Kaysen, the dude is an absolute genius when it comes to the sport of boxing. And it's showing right now, bringing a kid from hockey skates to being one of the best in the world with boxing gloves on. So I got a great team behind me, great camp, and we're just looking we're very, very much looking forward to April 16th for the rest of the world to see what we can do, our whole entire team.
Excellent. Give us your thoughts on your opponent, Josesito Lopez.
You know what? I got much respect. I respect every single fighter that I get in the ring with and never overlook them. But one thing about me is I don't even really dive into my opponents. You know, my last fight, I didn't really watch any videos on them. I didn't need to know anything because every single time I step in the ring, it's a different time and space, and that fighter's going to do different moves that they've never done before because they're in positions they've never ever been in before. So I understand his tools that he brings, his principles that he brings to the ring. The basic information about him is all I need to know. And I'll collect all the data information within the first 3 minutes that I need to. And then I'll come back to the corner and I'll have a game plan made up in a minute with my team. And we'll go from there. I don't need to know too much about my opponent. All I need to know is that Cody Crowley is in shape. Cody Crowley is ready to walk through and deteriorate anything put in front of him.
Now, has that always been your mindset, or did you study tapes early on, or how?
No, always been my mindset, and that's how we've trained. Even if I'm fighting for a left-hand fighter, I'll have right-hand sparring partners. This whole going and studying your opponent down to a T. And, sometimes it's great, to capitalize on certain mistakes they make. But, what happens if all of a sudden I was training 2 months for a right-handed fighter who's a pressure fighter and I didn't even know, or it was a secret, he's got a new coach that switched him from a left-handed to a right-handed, and now he's went from a pressure fighter to a counterpuncher. Now I just spent 2 to 3 months programming my body for something that is totally different than what's being presented in front of me. So I treat every single day just what's in front of me, the sparring partner, whether it's a tall guy, a short guy, a left-hand fighter, a right-hand fighter, a pressure fighter, a counterpuncher. I work with what's in front of me, and I try and be the best that I can be in that present time and space.
Not bad. I hear you. Now, you're originally from Canada, and you alluded to this, but you were originally into hockey. How did you get involved in boxing?
Yeah. You know what? I was a very shy kid growing up. Wasn't good in sports. I played hockey, but I was, every time I got the puck, I would shoot it away. I had no self-esteem, no confidence. So my dad, he threw me in kickboxing to, quote unquote, stay in shape for hockey. But I think it was really to, lose weight and to gain some discipline, and some self-esteem. And, so I started kickboxing and I went in, I was doing great. First couple months, all of a sudden, I started losing weight and I felt amazing. And then I went in and had my first kickboxing tournament. And at that time, 14 and under, it was co-ed. And it was a karate/kickboxing tournament. And all of a sudden there was this girl standing in front of me, this 13-year-old girl. Bell rings. She picks up her leg and boom, 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 kicks me across the face. And so there you had a kid with low self-esteem already come and just get his ass kicked by a girl. Going back to school, having to tell everybody about that. So that kind of installed this drive inside of me that, shoot, you know what? No matter what, I'm not going to let this happen to me again. Like, I need to find something inside of myself and find this strength that nobody, man, woman, any obstacle can run over me again. So I just started right from that day forward, every single day, making sure I was the first one in the gym, the last one to leave, and I would work my butt off. I became completely obsessed. And then that just kind of snowballed into, what you see today. And what you see in the ring is a man who's possessed, who keeps coming forward and breaks people down.
You mentioned kickboxing. Was there something about boxing itself that attracted you, or how did you make that transition?
Yeah. You know what? I realized I had no flexibility, and getting kicked in the leg freaking sucked. Yeah. And my hand seemed to weigh faster than my feet. And then I started watching videos of Floyd Mayweather hitting pads, with Roger in the gym. And I just fell in love with that rhythm, with the timing, the mental fortitude that he had. And that's what made me, right there watching the video at like midnight, I was like, shoot, I'm going to be a professional fighter, and I'm going to be a professional boxer. And this is the road that I'm taking, and this is where I'm going to be. And, a decade later there, I'm in the ring with Floyd Mayweather boxing. I'm getting him ready for one of the biggest fights in boxing history. So this just shows you right there what hard work and dedication and discipline will do.
Yeah, we're going to get into Floyd. Were there any boxers in particular that you admired or studied as you were getting into the sport and sort of evolving?
You know what? Just to go back to that, Floyd was one of the greats that I became totally obsessed with watching, because that man, no matter what was placed in front of him, he found a way to win. He found a way to create openings that weren't there, to make fighters make mistakes that they wouldn't normally make. He basically, he was a magician inside of the ring. He was manipulating energy in there, manipulating the people to how he wanted them to be. And that's what I fell in love with, how he could go in there and dismantle another human being like that.
Very good. At some point you moved to the U.S. full time, right? When did that happen?
Yeah. So I moved at 21 years old. Because, growing up in Canada, the boxing resources are very little. It's not very big there. Every kid is born with hockey skates on their feet or a lacrosse stick in their hand. So I had to drive, an hour away, hour and a half away just to go to a boxing gym. So I knew, shoot, if I'm going to go and try and become one of the best in the world, what am I doing here in the wrong environment? If I want to be successful, I need to put myself in the best possible environment to be successful. So that's what I did. I packed up all my bags. I had my wife with my girlfriend at the time, and we decided, let's have a 10-year game plan. We're going to move to Vegas with a one-way ticket, and I'm giving myself 10 full years, a full decade in this game to become a world champion. Make myself from 0-0 to a world champion, and I won't stop at anything or let anything get in my way until I accomplish that. So that's what I did. I knew Vegas was the Mecca. It had all the big promoters, it had all the big events, which kind of just created a little pool for the fighters to base themselves out of and have the best training camps and the best sparring partners and the best resources outside of that. The amount of money and people that come into the city, it creates a melting pot of creation.
You became pretty popular at Mayweather Boxing Club, and you also regularly sparred Mayweather. Is that correct?
Yeah. That was another thing of just not taking no for an answer. When he was boxing Pacquiao, they called my coach and said, "Who do you got?" Because they know, Ibn Kaysen always produces great fighters. And he said, "I got a perfect guy for you. He's 5'7", 140 pounds. He'll be great." I showed up there 5'10". I was probably 165 at the time, and they're like, "No, sir, go home. You don't fit the picture that we're looking for." But I wouldn't take no for an answer. I walked through that door and I sat in the corner, and I sat there every single day. I didn't get paid or anything. I sat there for 3 weeks and watched Floyd get in the ring and just sat there with my wraps on until one day, it was I think Floyd was 3 hours late coming to the gym. We were sitting there, and everybody could tell he was in a bad mood that day, pissed off. And someone's like, "Shit, I feel sorry for whoever Floyd's boxing today." And all of a sudden, an hour later, Floyd rolls in, and someone looks over at me and says, "Canada, you're up." They didn't even know my name. They didn't know who I was. I was a white kid with a Canadian T-shirt on, something like that. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, there I am standing in the ring. I didn't even have my coach with me. And I'm standing in the ring looking across at the greatest fighter in the world with his dad, who was one of the greatest coaches in the world. And, I went over 12 rounds straight with the man.
What was sparring Floyd like?
It was an amazing learning experience. Because once again, I had no resources. I was just turned pro, just moved to Las Vegas, really didn't know anything about boxing. All I had was this heart and will. And I remember within the first 5 or 7 minutes, I was so physically exhausted just from the adrenaline rush of, being in there with someone of that magnitude, that I had my very first out of body experience in that ring, where, I kind of went above myself, and it's like time froze. It was only about maybe 5 seconds, but it felt like 5 minutes to me. And I sat there looking at everybody, and I'm like, why am I here? What right do I have being here? Do I really want to do this? And it's either I quit now, or I'm going to become a world champion, and nothing is ever going to stop me. And I just blinked and went 38 minutes, 38 minutes later, Floyd taps my glove and says, great job. And I was a sparring partner for that fight, and then for the Conor McGregor fight after that. And everyone started realizing, shoot, this kid can go. So I started getting hired by everybody, flown over to Russia, helping Edward Troyanowski, Chris Algieri, Zab Judah, Timothy Bradley, Rancis Bartholomew, Javante. The list goes on and on.
Wow.
Fantastic. So overall, what would you say you learned from the Doghouse and the Mayweather Boxing Club? Does anything or things stand out?
Biggest thing that stands out is, I would say, what I learned was how to block everything out and go into that your own space of self-belief. Because, there I was, a little white kid in Canada in the Doghouse, and I got 200 people screaming at me around the ring that I'm gonna die, get knocked out, and I got one of the greatest fighters in the world that I looked up to at the time in front of me trying to take my head off. And so what I learned from that was resilience, and that you're capable of absolutely anything if your heart and your mind are in it together.
Okay. I don't know how closely you follow other fighters, but do you have favorite fighters that you like to watch today?
Favorite fighters I like to watch. Of course, Pacquiao. I've been watching him since I was a kid. He's a great fighter to watch. Shane Mosley was a great fighter to watch. Nowadays, Tank. I love watching Tank fight. The dude he's so naturally gifted. And I've been in the ring with him. Pound for pound, that dude is one of the hardest punchers that I've been in the ring with. I've been in the ring with over 25 world champions. So the level of skill, and the level of power that man holds in that tiny little body of his, I got a lot of respect for him, and he just always shows up, under the lights. So it's always going to be exciting. There's always going to be fireworks. So he's one that I really like to watch. But you know what? I honestly, the only time I really like to go to fights and watch fights are when I'm fighting, to be honest.
That's fair. Now, speaking of when you're fighting, you made a pretty big statement with your winning your last bout against Kujatila Abdukakrof last December. You were also knocked down early on. Tell us what happened there. Were you seriously hurt, or?
No, I wasn't seriously hurt. It was, I just kind of got caught off balance. If you've seen it, I was inside his foot. I I rolled under a shot. I came jumping forward with a leaping lead right hook, which just missed his chin. I believe would have slept him. So as I was following through with that and missing him, he just caught me on the chin. So I was out of balance, facing the wrong way. That's why you see I was on my heels in slow motion, and I went back, and my legs, I just couldn't get my legs back in time to catch myself. So I fell down. But I believe that's something that I needed to show people, what I'm made out of, because it doesn't matter. No one ever really seems to give me the credit. I've been trying to fight anybody. I go in there and everyone says they're going to do the same thing, knock me out, whatever. And I win. I keep throwing more punches. I get the guys running around, and next thing you know, there I go. I win. And this getting knocked down was great, because it showed adversity. It showed that I was actually in trouble for once, and what's going to happen to them when they are faced with adversity. And I showed that, I got a big heart. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I do got a granite chin. No matter how hard I get hit, I'm still going to get up and keep coming forward.
Yeah, you got up, and then you really started to put a hurting on it. You really put it on him. What were your thoughts on your performance overall?
I thought my performance was good. I was excited just to be in there, first time on Showtime. I really would have loved to stop him, get a knockout. But it just didn't happen. But I showed that I can be in there with the best in the world. There were a lot of talk about for Kudratillo, it wasn't even about fighting Cody Crowley. It was about fighting Errol Spence. Once you get past this little time killer in front of you, there's no real respect on my name at all. But as you see, I always knew. I always have self-belief, and it's just a matter of time before everyone else gets to see that. I just haven't had the opportunities yet for everyone to see that I am one of the best. No. You can ask it. A lot of the people inside the boxing game and fighters, they know who Cody Crowley is. It's just Cody Crowley hasn't had the opportunity for the rest of the world and the boxing fans for them to know who Cody Crowley is.
Now, getting to your next fight, April 16th against Lopez, is it important to you is it just about getting the win, or are you looking to make a statement?
Definitely looking to make a statement. Definitely looking to get the win. I'm not going to be attached to going and making sure I get the knockout or looking a certain way or anything like that. The only thing that matters to me is getting the win. Someone put somebody in front of me, I will do everything I can to go in there and beat that person. And it's only a matter of time before I get to prove that I'm going to do the exact same thing to the best fighters in the world.
You mentioned the ultimate goal, which is to win a world title. How close do you think you are to a title shot?
I believe I'll fight for a world title at this by the end of this year. By the end of this year, Cody Crowley will be 147-pound welterweight world champion. I put that on my name. So
it could be the next fight after this.
I believe so.
Very good.
I believe so. Like here, you just had the number one contender, who was supposed to fight Errol, and I just went in there and every single round went and defeated this man. Now and then I get ranked number 14 after just taking out the number one IBF contender. How does that even make sense? And then you have other guys that fought that night who were fighting my sparring partners, who went from, ranked number 10 in the IBF to ranked number 6, fighting somebody with a 50-50 record. So this boxing game, it's clearly not about just winning and beating fighters. It's clearly a business, and it's super hard and it's super unfair to a lot of fighters. Fighters work their whole entire lives. They give up more than any other sport, I believe. They put their heart on the line. They put their health on the line. And then you have these people who sit on the corner, who judge, and make the deals, who, they do a lot of damage to people. It's pretty sad.
I always thought that if you keep winning, which is not easy to do, obviously, but if you keep winning, eventually the opportunity comes. Does that make sense?
Exactly. And that's why when you say, are you looking to make a statement? Are you looking for something specific? I'm not going to get myself attached to that. And I'm not going to say that that's what I am looking to do, because clearly, you do that and you're not guaranteed to get what you just showcased your worth. So all I care about is I will win no matter who you put in front of me. I will continue to break them down. I will continue to win. And at the end of the day, it's inevitable for me to get what I'm worth. It just takes some people a little longer of a journey than others because of different positions that they're placed in. But at the end of the day, darkness will always come to light.
Cody, finally, so if you had your way, assuming you could get by Lopez, who would you like to face next, or does it matter?
It really doesn't matter to me. Like I said, I'm just coming for that world title. So there's, Errol's got some titles, Ugas got some titles. I would love to fight one of those guys. I've been in the ring with Ugas. I've been trying to make that fight happen for a while. I understand I need to get myself in the proper position and ranking position for that to happen. So clearly it's just up to me to keep winning. The only thing I can do is win, and all the deals of making fights happen. I just got to be patient. Just be patient and know that it's going to pay off. I got a whole country behind me. Canada is such a supporting, loving, neighborhood friendly country. They support their fans. That's why living in Canada, I had to go leave my country to go and get the resources I needed to be successful. And then I went, self-promoted, self-managed with my team. And I would train here in Canada and promote in Vegas and promote shows and sell out, 5,000-6,000 seat arenas back in Canada through nothing but my iPhone, sitting here while training all day and promoting shows and headlining the shows all at the exact same time from a whole nother country from my cell phone. Then the support I had back there was just phenomenal. You see what happens when, the Toronto Raptors win the NBA championship. They shut the whole entire city down just from fans on the street. They love to support each other. The Toronto Maple Leafs, they don't make it to the playoffs that often, but every single game is sold out. So Canada just, they need a horse to get behind, and they will support. And I believe that I can be that face of boxing for Canada, and I can be that right horse. They just haven't had that right horse that's been homegrown straight from the grassroots of Canada. And I believe that I can be that for the country.
So how do the fans there react when you get that belt wrapped around your waist?
I think they'll feel it just as much as I do. They've been supportive, extremely supportive right from the time that I went and left my family, my friends, and moved to a different country to chase my dream. So I think me winning a world title means that every person in Canada and every kid that wants to go and chase their dream will be happy, and they will feel like they won a world title themselves.
That's a perfect way to end this. Obviously, we know you're in the middle of camp, so we really appreciate you taking the time. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you on the 16th. Dallas is going to be fun. Cody Crowley is coming to put on a show. If you don't know who he is, please make sure to follow. You guys are going to find out who he is real soon. I'll see you guys on fight night.
It's time for Mike and I to go toe to toe. This week, we're listing the 5 best PBC fighters who currently do not hold a world title. Of course, we'll go in ascending order, but first, Mike, I got to tell you, this was really, really tough.
Yeah, it was another tough one to do. I had like 8 guys that I was looking at, and then I sort of whittled it down to 7 guys before I finally chose 5. But I do want to offer apologies to Erickson Lubin and Brandon Figueroa, who could easily be on this list. I mean, you could argue should be on this list, but in the end, they didn't quite make mine. So they're 6 and 7 in some order.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm not going to comment on that. Why don't we go ahead and you kick it off with number 5?
Okay, number 5 for me, Deontay Wilder. I feel comfortable saying that Wilder is the second best heavyweight in the world, behind only his rival Tyson Fury. He proved it in the 3rd fight with Fury, which was just an all-time heavyweight classic. He came up short in that fight, but showed the heart of a lion. In that fight, I think that earned him more respect than he had before, going into that fight. He'll never be a great technician, but he's plenty good enough to land those bombs that he throws, which are among the hardest punches in history. And again, we know now for sure how tough the guy is. He's got, again, heart of a lion. I don't know what his plans are, but I imagine he'll be back sometime this year soon. I believe he'll continue to do what he does, which is to just eviscerate the other guy in the ring with mind-blowing power shots. He's 36. He can't go on doing this forever, but I think he has a lot more to give before he hangs him up.
Yeah, and he's got to have one hell of a ring IQ in order to consistently set these guys up for a killer bombing that allows him to go home. I did not add any heavyweights to my list. Do not judge. It was just too much, and I had to figure out a way to cut down.
He was too good for me. He was too good for me to leave.
Yeah,
that was my thought process.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I did not put any welterweights on my list. Now, guys who almost made the cut but didn't, Brandon Figueroa is one. My apologies to him. Also, Ray Vargas and Subriel Matias, both of them fell short on my list. That may change by year's end. Heck, at least one of them might be wearing a belt. So my number 5 is Erickson Lubin. Lubin returns April 9th against Sebastian Fundora on Showtime, and that fight is going to tell us a lot about him, but he's amassed quite a record over the past few years, building himself back up under the watchful eye of Kenny Cunningham after that first-round KO loss to Jermell Charlo. He is unbeaten in the 5 years since. We saw him easily outpoint Tszyu-Gausha, maybe not easily, but a wide decision over Tszyu-Gausha. Jason Rosario, he stopped. Nathaniel Gallimore. Look, Lubin is a smooth southpaw boxer. He's got good pop, discipline. And what's crazy is that he's still only 26 years old. Look, he may not be on this list for long.
Yeah, I mean, I considered Erickson Lubin. I love the way he sort of rebuilt himself or bounced back from the loss to Jermell Charlo. I just think he's one of the best offensive fighters in the sport. Maybe one reason that he didn't quite get to my top 5 is I still have questions about his chin, but we'll see. He's been stopped once. He's only lost once. So yeah. We'll see how that plays out. I love Erickson Lubin. So yeah, he could have easily been on my list.
Yeah, for sure. Let's move on to number 4. My number 4 is Keith one-time Thurman, the former unified welterweight champ, a guy who holds wins over Sean Porter and Danny Garcia, fought Manny Pacquiao tooth and nail. We saw him look very impressive, outpointing Mario Barrios last February, and that was coming off a 3-year layoff. The Keith I saw is still very formidable, and I can't wait to see what he does against the other top welters. He's shown in the past that he has no qualms about getting in the ring with anybody.
Yeah, I thought about Thurman, and I did like his performance against Barrios. I think I just need to see a little bit more from him since he'd been away for so long before I would put him in the top 5. But listen, he's got a big name. He's got the resume. He's got the ability. Love the guy. So, yeah, I support that pick.
Who's your number 4?
My number 4 is Tim Tszyu. Yeah,
okay.
we just saw what he can do. He's not a guy. He's not a guy who's making a living off his father's name. This guy is a fighter through and through.
Right.
He has ability and natural physical gifts, or he wouldn't be where he is right now. But I think it's his determination, his belief in himself that's going to take him a long way. A lot of trainers, when you ask them what impresses them most about a particular fighter, they'll say, well, the confidence he has in himself. That's a really big deal. And Tszyu has that without question. He knows he's going to win, and then he goes out and does it. Again, I don't know if he beats Jermell Charlo, who I consider the top 154 pounder. But I would be nervous if my fighter was facing Tszyu, no matter who that fighter was. We don't really know for sure. I personally don't really know for sure how good Tszyu is. His best victories are over Jeff Horn and Tszyu-Gausha, who are good fighters, but I think there are better opponents out there. But all the signs are there so far. This guy has something special.
Yeah, there was a poise there I saw on Saturday night that I thought was really impressive, and then I remembered our conversation with him here on the PBC podcast where he said my last 9 fights in Australia were on pay-per-view. He is not scared of the big stage, of the bright lights. He's a well-conditioned fighter, supremely confident, and probably won't be on this list for very long. Let's go on to number 3. Who you got?
Okay, this guy had to be on the list. I didn't even consider not having him on the list. Gary Russell Jr. He just has to be on the list, right? He lost his title to Mark Magsayo in his last fight, but he fought one-handed because of a shoulder injury and still almost won the fight. Some people thought he did. I have to think that a two-handed Russell could beat Magsayo handily and probably is still the best featherweight in the world. Now, I have to say he did lose the fight. Magsayo is now the WBC champ, and I actually scored it for him, injury or no injury. We can't just assume that Russell is still the best in the division. He'd have to prove it in the ring. I just have no reason to believe he wouldn't do that. He's still super quick, still super skilled, still has that experience. He just needs to be healthy, and I know he's on the mend, so I expect a big comeback from him.
Yeah, I do too, and I will get to him a little later. My number 3 is Danny Roman. This is a 2-time champ, a former unified champ at 122 pounds. Some believe he never should have lost those titles, and we'll see if he can get them back get some belts back when he faces Stephen Fulton on June 4th. But bottom line, Roman is such a skilled fighter. He's just beautiful to watch. His counter shots, the body shots, the jab, the slick infighting, the way he controls the action in the ring. His ring IQ is just off the charts. Roman may not have a strap, but to me, he is still one of the best fighters in the world.
Yeah, I seriously considered Roman for the reasons that you stated. I think this guy is a little bit underappreciated. As you said, he's just a beautiful boxer. His skill set is just like off the charts. Really, really good fighter. And I hope that he does get the universal credit that he deserves. And, not to mention the titles, even though the titles don't mean that much to me. Maybe that was one reason I enjoyed doing this list so much, because I don't care that much about titles. Roman's a really, really good fighter. And I hope he does get the full respect that he deserves.
Yeah, I hope so as well. Let's go to number. Is your turn for number 3, or are we at number 2?
We are at number 2 already.
Oh boy,
flying through this.
All right. Well, I cheated on my number 2. I just couldn't choose between these 2 guys, and I wanted both on the list.
All right. I know what you did now. All right. It was a tie.
So I got the tie for 2: Caleb Plant and David Benavidez. 2 different styles, 2 highly confident fighters. Both have won world titles at 168. Both have been circling each other for years. I would pay to watch these 2 engage in a verbal battle at a press conference. I mean, I think the build-up to a fight would be electric, one of the best we've seen in years. Bottom line is we need to see them get in the ring and throw down so we know who the better fighter is, and I don't have to do things like this when I'm making lists.
I think that speaking of them separately, I think that Plant proved quite a bit in his fight against Canelo Alvarez. I thought he acquitted himself very well until the end. He ended up, getting taken out in the end, but I thought he acquitted himself
sure
well.
Did.
So, I mean, I thought he was good going in, but I think that sort of sealed the deal. So I have a ton of respect for him. And, I have so much respect for David Benavidez that Benavidez is number 2 on my list.
Nah.
Well, number 2 and number 1 on my list could have been interchangeable, and for what it's worth, and I'm still a fan. These are my 2 favorite fighters, I think, in boxing right now. Anyway, starting with Benavidez, what's not to like about him? He's only 25, and he's already has a strong resume with 2 world titles and knockout victories over solid guys like Anthony Durrell. And he has the goods. It's so obvious. He's tall, strong guy with real quick, really heavy hands, and the fighting spirit to just let him fly. This guy doesn't mess around at all. He's just, the bell rings, he starts winging punches and hurts you. I'm not sure there's anyone else in the sport that throws hard combinations as consistently as this guy does. Yeah. And that's just so much fun to watch. And it's also bad news for his opponents. He usually end up getting just battered from pillar to post. I probably throw around the word beast too much, but that's what he is. Just a strong, nasty beast. I would pick him to beat any 168 pounder except Canelo Alvarez. And I would give Benavidez a chance of, the best chance of anyone else of beating Canelo Alvarez. I think he's naturally bigger, stronger, and quicker than Canelo. And he'd go after Canelo, which not many guys do. I'm not sure there's a more fascinating matchup in boxing, frankly, than Benavidez versus Canelo. I just love David Benavidez.
Yeah, I think a lot of people want to see that. I mean, obviously, a lot of people want to see that fight, but I hear them calling for that fight more so than any other fight. I mean, Mike Tyson wants to see that fight. That's the fight that he's been calling for. But so we kind of agreed on number 2, kind of.
50%.
50%. I'll kick off my number 1. It is Gary Russell Jr. The loss to Mark Magsayo ended the longest world title reign in the sport, but look, Russell had a pretty bad shoulder injury, and he nearly pulled off the win anyway. How could you not be impressed by the skills he showed in that fight? He was just incredible, and he has been for a long time. I hope we see him back in the ring again soon, because based on his performance that night, he still has much, much more to offer the sport.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%, which is why he was on my list. I think that he's still got the goods, and I think he's going to prove it.
All right. Your turn.
Drum roll, my number 1. Jaron Boots Ennis.
I figured.
Yeah. I know Ennis doesn't have the resume that some guys do, but I like what I see with him as much as anyone in the sport. As I've said, to me, he reminds me of a prime Roy Jones Jr., and that's the ultimate compliment. He has just crazy quickness and reflexes, which is why he can fight with his hands down. He can take you out with one punch, as we've seen, and he can even take a good shot. He got rocked while he was on the attack against Thomas Dulorme, if you recall, and he didn't even blink. I don't see a weakness in Ennis, at least not yet. That doesn't mean he can't get better. One thing I think he needs to do is acknowledge that he's a human being. Sometimes overly confident fighters end up on their backs looking up at the lights. A bigger puncher than Dulorme, for example, might have hurt Ennis with that punch, and who knows what would happen. Overall, I mean, I just cannot say enough about this guy. To me, he's the number 1 fighter pound for pound, just waiting to happen.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing him return May 14th against Castillo Clay. That's another good fight, good style matchup for him. I'm really curious to see how he deals with it, with Clayton's boxing style, and whether or not we see a boxing match, or is he just going to try and steamroll him? Ennis, obviously, his talents are off the charts. It's scary how good this guy can be, and it looks like we'll be seeing him against the other top elite welter sooner rather than later. Speaking of elite welters, it's time to bring in our next guest. He trains 2 unified world champions, one of them an elite welter by the name of Errol Spence Jr., who takes on Yordenis Ugas in a 3-belt unification matchup Saturday, April 16th on SHOWTIME pay-per-view from AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. And the other, Jermell Charlo, who will be back in the ring in a rematch against Brian Castano for the undisputed 154-pound crown May 14th in California. One of the busiest and one of the best men in the sport, Derrick James. Derrick, first, how has camp been for April 16th SHOWTIME pay-per-view at AT&T Stadium?
It's been great, man. I mean, it's like a lot of hard work, a lot of focus, a lot of adjusting, readjusting, getting everything down. It's been great. It's been like, put like this, it's been going like all the other camps have been, so it's been good.
What are you seeing from Errol during this particular camp?
I think that his fitness his body has come together a lot faster. I don't know what his weight actually is, but I can say that his fitness level is great. He has a chef that just came in. He was on Monday. So he's starting to, he's eating, he's very strong, and his physical fitness is on point. So that's what I'm really seeing the most. Not saying his conditioning has always been great, but his body and everything, his physique, everything is just like, he looks like he's doing weight right now.
So would you say that he looks even better in this camp than he did while he was preparing for the Danny Garcia fight?
Yes, without a doubt. Yes, he does. Yes.
And there's no issues at all with the eye. That's something that's in the past. You guys don't even think about that?
It's not. We don't even talk about it.
Good.
Only time we talk about it in interviews, because it's like we don't think about it.
Very good. So what can you tell us about Yordenis Ugas?
Hey, Yordenis Ugas is an amazing fighter, amazing guy with amazing fortitude. He's a great counterpuncher. He's a great fighter. I mean, he's a guy who's gonna come to fight. He has a lot to fight for, and that's what it's all about. He's coming here to fight. He's getting his chance to fight for the world title again, but this time the unified title. So I think that he's hungrier.
Yeah, that makes sense. What were your thoughts on his performance against Manny Pacquiao?
I think it was good. I think that he fought him the way that I would have fought him. Treat Manny Pacquiao like he's a little guy. He's a small guy. Just like, you kind of just use your size and impose your will on him. That's what he was able to do. Even though Manny was, he's older, but it doesn't matter. He chose to get in the ring. So you would fight him I would fight him just like that.
Now, you brought up the Pacquiao fight. You brought up his fortitude. Is he the type of fighter where Errol's going to have to basically break his will?
That's right. I think that because nothing's going to deter him from being able to think he can beat him. If he, escaped 6 times, finally got to him the 7th time to defect, he is the guy who you have to, hey man, listen, his will wasn't broken. Don't tell him what they did to him all those other times that they caught him. So if you think about that.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to break his will and really beat him and just really maybe more about intellectually. You may just have to be more intelligent and maybe strategize different, or because it's like you have to be able to do something, to get him. Yeah. And hey man, look, how do you get a guy who won't give up? You got to break him. If you can't break him, you have to be smarter than him.
Yeah. You mentioned Errol and the nutritionist and his body coming together. He's talked about having only 2 more fights at welterweight. Do you expect to see him at 154 within the next year or so?
I mean, if that's what he said, we haven't had the conversation, but I mean, if that's what he's saying, then I guess that's what it is.
Now, based on what you see, do you think a move up would benefit him?
I think that, put it like this. If he feels like it's a struggle to make the weight, then yeah, I think that a move up would help him, could benefit him. I think that he, and the thing about it too, I think that even want him going for undisputed championship of the world, I think that the fans don't even look at that. They just look at the type of fighter that he is. I think that the way he fights his fights, I think that's what they really are attracted to more than the idea of him being a world champion. So I think that he's a guy who doesn't even really need a belt to be considered great.
You mentioned if he has trouble making weight. Do you sense that he is having any trouble making 147?
No, I don't. But I think that maybe, we haven't had the conversation, but I don't think that he has trouble making the weight. I was just, what are the reasons? Maybe he just wants to, okay, I've conquered this division. Maybe he wants to go up and do another division. I'm not for sure. Because, like I said, we haven't talked about it. We have not spoke about him moving up.
You got other things to talk about right now. All right. Another one of your fighters, Jermell Charlo, is slated to face Brian Castano in a rematch on May 14th. How has camp been for that fight?
Hey, Jermell is good, man. He's great. He's been working, he's been grinding and pushing right through.
Very good. Give us your thoughts on how you thought the fight went the first time around.
I think that the fight was pretty competitive. I think that if you think about it like this, Jermell won the second round, and Jermell won, I mean, say maybe the last 4 rounds, but maybe he must have won another round in between there. So it was like to make it a draw. I think Brian Castano could have won, maybe Jermell won the first, the second, and the 8 through 12. And it could have been, Castano could have been, he was doing well those middle rounds because he was still around right before the bell would ring. He went up for real good flurry. I think that's how he was winning on ground.
What's Jermell's mindset going into the rematch?
He wants to get him back. He wants to win the fight.
Now, do you, in your opinion, I mean, you were there. We saw how Jermell fought. Do you feel what do you think Mel needs to do differently in the rematch in order to win decisively, to leave no doubt?
I think that he needs to come in there and show up and go out there and start the way he finished. Start the fight out like he did in the last 4 rounds.
What changed in the last 4 rounds that allowed him to take control?
I told him that he was losing the fight. I looked up at you could look up at the scores, and it really was the subjective scoring of the Showtime crew, right? And they said that they thought he was behind. And I told him. He's like, what? And then that's when he picked it up. Yeah.
So you need to tell him that he's behind before the opening bell, and then he'll.
Hey, listen, man, you way behind. Listen, you behind the gun. Let him know. He's walking in, call out his name. You know you're behind, right? There you go. Right.
Yeah, perfect.
Now, I know the answer to this already, but there was some hoopla about this. Errol mentioned possibly fighting Jermell in the future. Now, as a man who trains both guys, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I didn't hear him say that. I've heard people say that he said that, and I haven't asked him that either. Because, sometimes there's some things you don't want. You hear somebody say you don't want to hear. You don't. But all you have said to me is it hadn't happened. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
So I'm not, not that I want to hear it. That's probably why I haven't asked, But yeah, I mean, I think that, hey man, I don't know how you do that from round to round, just run across the ring, from round to round.
30 seconds for each guy in between rounds.
Right. I mean, other than that, I don't know.
That would be a hell of a fight, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be a heck of a fight, man. But man, hey man, I'm not thinking about that. You all talk about it. I don't want to think about it. You know what I mean?
I get it.
It would be put like this. It would be amazing if the fans want to see the fight. They need to get those sparring sessions at Showtime,
right.
Man. That's how Showtime can do it. Cause listen, I mean, if they want it, it's up to them. But I mean, I'm not looking for it.
Yeah, completely understandable. So we're back to talking about weight. In your opinion, how much longer do you think Jermell has at 154? He's been there for over a decade at one weight.
I don't know. I think that he makes the weight pretty decent. I mean, I think that it's really up to them. Really, it's a conversation he and Errol need to have. Amen. So when are we ready to go up? That's the conversation they need to have, But before I heard him say, like a while ago, they were going to talk about it and, go up. But I mean, it's like.
Does Jermell, like when he arrives at camp, it sounds to me like as if he's pretty in pretty good shape, so where you don't have to focus on weight as much as strategy and that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that with, Jermell, him moving up, I mean, even though we hadn't talked about these things, but, I just heard them say that I saw an interview where Jermell said something about maybe we'll talk about going up, moving up, or whatever. So we'll see. I don't know.
Let's talk about another one of your fighters, Frank Martin. He's a guy that's on the rise. What do you think makes Frank a special fighter?
Man, he's a cool mix of athleticism, a skill set, and he's always learning. He's always trying to understand. He's always watching. He's in the gym watching Errol spar, getting ready for this fight. He's in the gym watching. I mean, so it's like he wants to know more. And I think that basically, the more education you have, the more knowledge you have, the better you become. So I think he understands that, and he's really that's what he's doing. He's watching. He's going to school every day, watching Errol, and man, his athleticism and skill set is amazing.
What's the difference between working with a prospect like that as opposed to like proven guys like Errol and Jermell?
I think that because we've been working together for so long, but everybody embraces what I tell them. You know, but I think with Errol and Jermell, it's not so much teaching as it is about just talking about, okay, we're gonna do this will get you that, this will get you that. With Frank, it's still more about teaching until we get to a couple more years down the line. Then it's all about just telling them, remember we did this, so it's always about referencing something that we did before or whatever. So that's what I'll do with Errol or Jermell. It's always teaching, but it's more like he's so young. And he's young with me because it's only been like 2 years, I think, maybe 2 going on 3 years, that he's still learning.
Yeah. Go ahead. Were you going to ask something, Mike?
Yeah, I was going to say, I imagine, or it sounds like you enjoy the teaching part of it, don't you?
Hey, man, teaching more than anything. You know what I mean? Because it's like it's you think about it. I mean, it's like I'm constantly thinking about it because I know that what he needs, that I'll give him, and it's going to carry him a long way. You know, so it's like all about teaching. It's all about giving education. And that's the key element for myself. I mean, I go to the gym, and I have to be conscious of everything that I say to the guys. Everything that I tell them, you have to be conscious. So you can't go and just work them out. Do mid-work, just work them out. No, I have to be conscious on every motion, every movement, because what they do in the ring is exactly what we work on. So I have to be conscious of that, and I love to teach.
Are you still learning? I mean, even though you're an experienced teacher, a great teacher, do you feel as if you're still learning?
I think that I am still learning, yes, because and not so much about learning about boxing, but learning about individuals, how. Because I think that you have to know the people that you're teaching to be able to get to them the most. So if I want to be able to get to them, and so it's like I'm still learning, and you still acknowledge, because I think that once you stop learning, then you should retire. You know, so yeah. But still learning, and so what it is that the teaching part is something that I have a lot of knowledge on, but it's about learning how to get to the fighters and how for them to understand what I want to get across. It's a key element, because I think that if they're not getting something, it's not them, it's me. So I have to constantly keep evolving, or keep trying to give it to them in a particular way, or repackage it, or it's not them, it's me. Whether I show it to them, or I have this guy show it, so it's the same thing. I keep going, keep evolving.
Now, getting back to Frank Martin, in your opinion, how far away is he from a world title shot?
Man, I think that he is right up there. I mean, it could be any day. I mean, it could be any. I mean, I think that within if not within the year, at the beginning of next year, he'll be ready.
I like it. Last question: when can we expect to see Mr. Martin back in the ring?
I think that he'll be fighting maybe like in May or June-ish, something like that. I think, not for sure, but I think maybe May. He's in the gym for sure, so he's in the gym for sure. But maybe like May or June or something like that.
Well, we cannot wait. Derrick, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak to us. We know you got a lot going on right now, so all the best to you. Of course, we'll be seeing you in April in Texas.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. Yes, and I appreciate the time, and it's great.
That's going to do it for this week's show. We want to thank Cody Crowley and Derrick James for tuning in. As a reminder, guys, PBC Podcast is available on all platforms. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment whenever you get a chance. And be sure to check back in next week for more boxing talk and more interviews right here on the PBC Podcast.